Good evening and welcome into the 43rd edition of the R&R Sports Report. It is July 27th. This year's going by insanely fast. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Robert Hagan. Let's see if Robert can point in the right direction this week. Robert, take it away.
It's good to be here. I hope I can make it through the show. Been dealing with stupid head cold. These fires are just terrible, but hopefully we make it through it. I've been sitting behind a computer screen all day today. 4 days of training for the next couple days. So not as exciting as you waiting for the electrician. I'm not.
So we did our best to burn our house down and failed, and have been waiting for electricians to show up to change all of the outlets in our house, which is why you see my office in complete shambles. I have shelves in front of shelves. I got my N64 shelf in front of the television, just getting things out of the way of all of the outlets in our house. And for the second time in a row, the electrician just went, we're too busy to go to that house. We don't want to do all that work. So luckily, Haley was able to finally get a hold of somebody this time, since nobody even told us last time that they weren't going to show up. And they finally went, so we're not going to be able to do it today. This is at like 3:30, 4 o'clock this afternoon. They were supposed to be here at like 10:30. But we can make it Friday. Yeah, well, maybe. We'll see. Maybe we'll go with you. Maybe we'll go with someone else. It's just it was a complete headache.
Yeah, I'm to the point with all these businesses. Some of them just don't want to work and don't want to do anything. And it just is,
I can't blame them because I don't want to do either of those things.
No, I wouldn't either.
Which is why I'm a casino dealer and I work for a paper now.
Yeah.
I do everything I can to not work.
Have you got your first story yet? That was one thing.
I haven't gotten my first shift yet. It won't be till mid-August, late August, till I really get going over there. I've been hired. I've gotten my welcome email, and that's it. That's as far as I've gotten with the Tribune. But when I got hired, that's exactly what he said. He's like, I'm just getting my ducks in the row for when, high school sports actually get going.
August,
Yeah. Yep. So I'll come in a couple times over the next couple weeks just to log into a couple computers, because apparently their computers are like school computers, and the first time you log in, it takes 8 years. So he'll have me do that and kind of go over what they like as far as style goes, and we'll go from there. Basically,
I can't wait for you to get in there and see Dale Grummett's desk. Dale, friend of ours. It's crazy.
Dale and I. So when I got hired last Monday, he was giving me the tour, and Dale was sitting around, and we chatted it up for a couple minutes.
I ran into him after taking some of my summer school kids down there, and I talked about it. I said, and now if any of you know Dale, and Dale, great guy, works for the Lewis Morning Tribune, but he holds on to every piece of paper, magazine, any article. He even had a little section I found that was Bowler of the Year stuff that he's had from who knows how long he's been there. And it's just crazy to see that he has held on to all that stuff this long. So
when I was there last week, one of the ladies was joking that they had finally emptied out a file cabinet and they were going to put all of Dale's stuff in there. And they showed him how file cabinets work, and they were putting stuff into file cabinets, and you just see Dale stand up, walk over, and just grab what she was playing with and walk back and set it.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I can't wait for one of your stories to hit. So
yeah, everyone's very excited, and I'm very excited to see where this goes. But I'm not gonna have a story in a long time. I'm just gonna do little recaps for soccer games and football games and stuff. So there won't be any crazy big stories for a little bit. They're easing me into the process, but baby steps and stepping stones and all the other fun talk.
You talk about stepping stones, and that was the weird thing with today. Is part of my homework from my training was, and then it was a lot of people I have known and met through working for the school district across the state, and they wanted us to build a slide to talk about us and talk about what we did for a living, what we love, and all that, and what you're involved with. And I'm thinking, oh my God. You start with your job, and then you say football coach, and then you say public address announcer. Then I put in there, which is very true. I mean, you talk about host of a sports podcast and radio show, and and I put radio personality in it. And when I typed that, it was kind of like, wow.
It feels weird.
It's weird because this is something you and I have been working on for so long
for
to
sure.
get our name out there and to type it for the first time and say radio personality or co-host of a podcast.
My favorite thing to do is to tell people now, because obviously we're on summer break, is I'm the host of a radio show that's not technically a radio show right now. Like, we still call ourselves a radio show. Turn your phone off.
And it has to, I had to have it on, and it's right by my microphone, so I didn't even think about turning it off.
I'm sitting here talking about how cool it is to be a radio host, and you're so unprofessional about it.
Well, you can blame my mom. We'll talk about my mom a little bit later, but we're going to blame my mom because I looked on there and it was a Facebook notification. So,
all right, we have a lot to get to because I guarantee you we've missed news. Because I tell myself every week I'm going to get better, that when I see news, I'm going to jump on our little document and put it in there so I don't forget. And then Tuesday morning hits and I haven't even looked at the doc all week. It's just what happens, and then I try to fill in the things I remember. But even on just that, there was just so much that happened in so many different sports avenues, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's the Bucks winning the championship just after our show. So we'll kind of touch on that. A certain someone that we've had to talk about for the last 5 months has finally shown back up to work. So we will get into that. We'll do our top 10 running backs as far as fantasy football goes this year. We got some fun games we're going to throw in there if we have time. My Hawthorne Hawks are as close to the wooden spoon as humanly possible at the moment. Bowling is back. But first, let's get into our big stories and trade deadline is also this week because everything is going on. Let's get into my top story. I think it's my turn to start first. We did it at the same time. That's great.
Yeah.
So my top story, once again, was supposed to be Dream Team versus Redeem Team, but Zach and I hadn't really talked all week, and then I messaged him today, and he messaged back saying he had totally forgot about it, and he is having furniture brought in tomorrow morning. So he is doing tonight what I had to do this morning of moving everything around. So I told him, thank you for dodging me, and we will try again next week. He says his plan is to get on before the Olympics ends, and the way the U.S. Olympic basketball team played in Game 1, it might be a short trip for them, and he needs to hurry up. But my top story now is Oklahoma and Texas have basically announced that they are done with the Big 12. They will not renew their grants of media rights. That expires in 2025. So I believe they're not going to be moving conferences until that date. They're just announcing it now, so it's cheaper for them once they do. They have requested to join the SEC, which would bring the Big 12 down to the baby 8. What are we going to call this conference now with only 8 teams? It would move the SEC to 16 teams. And still the Southeast, and now we have possibly Oklahoma and Texas in there. At what point do you just call yourself the big damn conference? Where do we go?
It's just crazy to think about all of these teams wanting to get shifted around. It's boiling back down to these wanting money. And I think I read in an article that in next year that the Big 12 is supposed to make close to $275 million just in media rights from one station. So when does it become about just watching these guys play football and doing that? I mean,
never again.
Yeah, you look at like Notre Dame. Notre Dame has their own station, with NBC covering it. You can't do anything with the Pac-12 without, going through them with their own networks. Every one of these stations have their own network now, and they're pushing things out.
Does the Big 12 have their own network?
I believe so. I know Southeast does. I know even certain colleges have their own stations. I've watched a few of them over the last
Yeah, there is. Okay.
few years. So I mean, it's getting huge with what some of these conferences are doing to make money. You got SEC, you've got Big Ten, you've got ACC. Yeah, so I mean, they're all have some kind of affiliation with it. So it'll be interesting. Even Longhorn Network, like I was saying, Texas got their own station. So we knew it was coming. We've now seen the athletes start getting the okays to put their names out on brands now, as if you're in a college. We knew it was inevitable. So it's where's the next step? So it'll be interesting to see if they do get in, as all the documentation went. What today I think was filed with the SEC asking for the trade to move. And so now it's the whole thing, but that's not until I believe 2025 when that would happen.
I believe so. That's when their media rights with the Big 12 are set to expire. So that's when they said they're not going to renew them. So I would believe that they are going to stay there until 2025. They're just setting things in motion. So
you talk about whether or not you want to scrap it. So let me show you something. I saw this, and this was a buddy of mine from our buddy Rick Smith. And Rick Smith is actually assistant basketball coach up in Pullman. I'm very good friends with Rick. He's a great guy. He posted this picture, and it does make a little bit of sense. What if these conferences all went to 16 teams apiece? Southeast would look like that. What you see up there, you got Bama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Vandy. Then you move in Kentucky, South Carolina, A&M moves over, Texas.
A&M's already over.
But then you look, the funny one. Then you look at the Pac-16. You now see You now see TCU. You see Texas Tech in there. You see Baylor in there. What are your thoughts about seeing these four major conferences go to 16 teams? Does it make a playoff scenario a little bit easier in football and in basketball?
It's become such a complete mess. So then you have so many teams in your conference, you're never going to play everybody. So do we not have non-conference games anymore at this point as far as football goes? Honestly, if you told me that we moved to 4 major conferences like this, and each of them had exactly 16 teams, and all of them promised never to touch a thing again for 50 years. These are your 4 conferences. Sign me up. But we're going to get it just like this, and then in 5 years, somebody's going to see that the SEC is still making bigger money, and all of a sudden Baylor's going to want to go, well, I don't want to be part of the Pacific 16. I want to be part of the Southeastern Conference, and I want to move. So I want uniformity like this, where we have so many conferences, and they're just set. But it's never going to be that way, and 16 is just too much.
So if you were to move something like that, I think you could add what would be the other conference. Even if you shrunk into 12, 5-12 conferences, Pac-12 wouldn't change. Big 12 would realign if this goes through. But could you see 5-12 teams?
I don't even care what other conferences, and give me 6 conferences of 10 teams.
Yeah.
10-team conferences to me fit perfectly, because then you play everyone in your conference once. That's 9 games, and you get 3 non-conference games. You allow everyone to play one team that is not in those 6 conferences, and the other 2 have to be in those 6 conferences. And you stop playing teams like Eastern Washington. That's how I would do it. It's never going to be that way ever in a million years. I'm never going to think that it will, but that is how I would like to see it. But the NCAA can't control anything. My bigger question is, when do we get to the point where we have an NCAA tournament and an SEC tournament, and then the winner of those 2 tournaments play for the national championship? because the SEC is just going to end up with 32 teams. Because you have to believe Oklahoma and Texas both want to move to the SEC because they want to be able to get those recruits by saying, hey, we're part of the SEC. ESPN loves us. You're going to get all of this coverage. So now you're going to be able to get all of these, advertising deals, which you wouldn't be able to get in the Big 12. So that's what they want to do. And then when that works for them, then everyone else in Texas is going to want to join. Everyone in the ACC is going to want to join because they're right in that same area as the SEC. So at what point do the ACC and the SEC just merge and become this ridiculous own league?
Well, I agree. It's become even the same with NFL and MLB. Some of these players, they want to go to big markets where they're going to be seen. They want to be out there in that area, and I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with some of these conferences. It's just getting to the point that it's all about where you're located, where's the biggest draw. Yeah, you're down in Jerry's land, down in Dallas. You want to get a little bit more. I don't see Baylor going to the Pac-16 and making a Pac-16. That just won't happen. I just don't see it, especially being in Central Texas. It doesn't make sense there. I mean, do you finally just split the country up into 5 segments and say, here you go.
That's what I would do.
Here's your part. You can't move. This is you. But when does NCAA put their foot down and say, this is where you're located. This is where you play?
It's never going to happen because it's all about money. And the sad thing is, we have talked about, we've had this conversation, for 7-8 minutes now, talking about money and location and what all these different conferences want to do. Do you know what the one thing we haven't said about a high schooler picking a college is? Who has the best educational program? Because it does not matter anymore. So at what point do we just stop the facade and say, you do not get a scholarship to come play at Texas, but we will pay you to come play for Texas? You're not a student, you're an athlete. When do we just get rid of, we just split it up? You can come be a student and get a scholarship. We'll pay you a scholarship if you want to be a student. But we'll pay you if you want to be an athlete, and the two shall not mix.
Yeah. And that's where it just doesn't make any sense anymore. Everybody has gotten greedy. The contracts are getting outrageous, with what professionals are coming down with. We'll talk a little bit. There's a Miami Dolphin that just came out just before the show here a few minutes ago. He wants out. He thinks he is one of the better cornerbacks, and he's not getting paid. And when do you put your foot down? You look at some of these guys that make their money and how much they make. It blows you away. What is there? I mean,
I'm still going to argue against that. To anybody that ever tells me an athlete makes enough money, then you're arguing that you want the owner to make even more money. Because these teams and these organizations make so much money. And to say that the athletes get overpaid is saying that you believe the owners are getting underpaid. These guys that, yes, they should be making lots of money. If you're the owner, you're taking on the risk. You deserve to get a very big part of the pie. I'm not saying that they shouldn't make anything, but it's like the players have negotiated in most sports around a 50% split of the revenue. That's what they get. And to say that they're overpaid is like, so where do you want them to only get 25% of the revenue? Are you upset that the janitors are not making 6 figures for these teams? I'm confused.
No, it's not that I don't think they're not worth what they did. I understand 100% like a 50-50 split, but with everything exploding in cost and prices and everybody jacking, that's where it's starting to get to the point where I hate seeing it. I mean, just looking like you and I talked about earlier, looking at the price of lumber, everything going up, everything goes up, and I agree. And some of the owners, I understand they need to make their money, but you also got to realize that you're going to price yourself out of getting fans in the stands.
Yeah, and that
much,
is
much
honestly
more.
the tightrope walk that owners make with raising ticket prices and raising concession stand prices. And I just watched a video today. It was a very cool video, and I don't even know when it was made. I think it was not too long ago. I guess you could know when was the last time the Mariners went to Angel Stadium. Um, but a guy took a tour of Angel Stadium and bought the cheapest. Oh man, the cheapest seats in the stadium were $7 up in the nosebleeds, and they were still decent seats for. I mean, just the top down view. But he was checking out the concessions, and a liter of water was $6.50.
Yeah.
However, they could, and before anyone goes, "Oh my God, it's way too much money." Guess what? We all pay the damn thing. They know we're going to pay it, and that's why they price it at that point.
Yeah.
Whether it's $1 or $10, we're at the game. We're thirsty. We're going to pay it. We're going to complain and throw a fit about it, but we're going to pay it, and that's all the owners care about.
Yeah, and that's the same thing that happened a couple of weeks ago. Denise and I went to the shot game, and it was a $4 bottle of water for the shot game to walk in there to the Spokane Arena. It was crazy. But you and I have seen that part too. Is when we went over and watched Baltimore play the Seahawks, and that was. It was not Quest Field then; it was CenturyLink. Mm-hmm. But we looked, and I think, what do we pay? $80 a ticket. The next year, we went and watched your New York Jets take and play the Seahawks, and I think we played like $95. Okay, yeah, I can see a little bit.
That's just a raise in the price for the talent of the team that's out on the field, or the guarantee that the Seahawks are going to win the game, probably.
But now the tickets are so bloody expensive; it's not funny. I mean, you can't get in.
Unfortunately, since COVID, everything is expensive. It's just we were talking about Haley and I are going to take the kids out to the coast in a couple weeks, and we're looking up hotel prices. And they're ungodly right now, where it's almost like, do we even want to? We finally found one that was reasonable enough where it's like, okay, we can pay this and not want to throw up. My game collection that I have back here, there are games that I sold a couple years ago when, we had tighter money situations. And of course, this can come and go. So we use that to kind of help us over a couple months that we were struggling. And then seeing a price of a game that I sold that has quadrupled in price in the last year because everything has just I know everyone's upset about gas prices. Everything is going up, and that's just the way it is. And I like your parents' comment, and I don't fully disagree by any means that owners need to pay for stadiums, but owners are really smart, and they know that a team coming to a city is very important to that city, and it brings in a lot of money. Again, as a wrestling fan, it went from WWE having to pay these cities to allow them to host events. And now they're having bidding wars as who's going to get WrestleMania, because you bring in an event and you bring in millions of people to watch it. So say football, you're going to get 8 games that you're going to get so many people from out of town in. It's going everyone that's around that stadium profits from it. But I do agree owners go over the top with that, making cities pay for stadiums. And I think they should fit the bill a bit more because, as we've seen, they make a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, and even Oakland, I mean, with everything going on there at Oakland Coliseum, they finally okayed the idea of getting a new place. So how much do they fork out in building this thing? I mean, it's the same thing over at Quest and T-Mobile Park. I mean, folks in Seattle, folks here in Washington State are still paying for that kind of stuff. And so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, like Eric says, even a single NHL game can bring in $1 million in revenue to the city. It's crazy with sporting events, concerts, all of these things can do to a city.
Well, Eric, great friend of the show and everything. And it's the same thing, Eric, as we talked about early when the show started, being at LCSC and Lewiston, Clarkson, Asotin not getting the NAIA baseball tournament last year, how much that affected just the income in our thing. I mean, you're looking at, 10 teams, all the hotels, all the food, and for them all of a sudden not to come for basically 7 days, 8
Mhm.
days. I mean, it's very hard on the economy, and we went through the same thing. So yeah, I agree with that. With $1 million in every city, yeah, it's crazy.
But in the end, back to the original topic, because I love the conversation, but we went on some tangents. But Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12, possibly going to the SEC. College football is going to look completely different in 4 years. That's my prediction.
Mhm.
Like, this is just the beginning. But Robert, it is now your turn, sir. Your top story of the week.
I'm going to keep mine short. It's one that we don't want to talk about, and then that we've hated talking about. But there's been so much
You
of it
have
going
to
on
right now.
But right now, you got to, with everything going on. How about all of the COVID cases? And I hate saying that C word right now, but all of the COVID cases coming up. I feel bad. The big one, we've been hard on Bryson DeChambeau, but what about Bryson DeChambeau having to bail out of the Tokyo Olympics, testing positive for COVID? And finding that out on the Monday just before he's getting ready to leave. Or actually, that he found out earlier and said he wasn't going to be going. John Rahm testing positive now,
which is crazy to
for
me because
Spanish.
we just talked about that story.
And he just was positive. But then you look at also Christian Yelich that comes out today. He tests positive after being vaccinated. So it'll be interesting to see if it's a strength thing. But now all these players and all these players. Yeah, all these players are testing positive with all this, and it's just kind of crazy to think that here we go again kind of idea. But for me, it gets down to some of these other names and the idea of those that aren't going to be there for the start of things. Frank Reich, Indianapolis Colts coach, is not at the beginning of training camp. He tests positive. The other one, Rick Dennison, Minnesota offensive line coach, said that he was going to be getting let go because he's not getting vaccinated. But then they find out a way today.
Rule.
Yeah. And now they find a way today to twist it a little bit. He's going to stay on as an senior advisor for the offensive line. You're just making up a position to pay for it. And that was a story that came out today. But let's think about it closer to home. Nick Rolovich, who has been a big person in the eye of the area around here in Southeast Washington and in the Valley, the Quad Cities here. He says he is not getting the vaccine, does not make an appearance at Pac-12 Media Day. And all this being said because he will not get vaccinated. But on the other hand, when your athletic director says that all students coming back in must be vaccinated, where does the line get drawn? And you look at Rolovich. Rolovich is the second highest paid state employee, and he's not having to get vaccinated.
Listen, again, I think we just throw out the disclaimers right now. Robert and I are not doctors. We don't know anything. We're just going off some of the stuff we've read. It's a complete mess out there. Eric is right, and I am very much worried that we're looking at 2020 all over again with this new strand and the numbers starting to skyrocket. And I honestly, it could get worse than it was last year, just for the fact that we are to the point where everyone is so fed up with it that they're going to be even more reliant or reluctant. That's the word I was looking for. To do any preventative measures, whether it's if Washington, because we know Washington will jump on a mask mandate as fast as any other state out there. If Washington put another mask mandate out there, I guarantee you, anyone that was opposed to the first mask mandate will just be completely up in arms. Absolutely not. You can't. It's just going to be insane. I see the numbers going up, especially because, like you said, a lot of these positive COVID tests that we are seeing right now, especially in sports, are off of people that did get the vaccine. And obviously the experts are saying obviously the vaccine is still helping. It is you still get COVID with this new strand, but it weakens it in your system, so it's less dangerous to you. That's what they say, not what I'm saying. But you're going to get a lot more positive tests. We saw today, just before the show, Trey Turner went 1 for 1, scored a run, and then got pulled from the game because he had tested positive. So does Washington just have to leave the field? I mean, obviously they're still allowing them to play, but everyone in that dugout is technically a close contact, right? So how in the world does any of that work at this point? So it's a mess. I'm worried it's going to be a bigger mess. Whether you want to say safety or not, and whether you believe COVID's a hoax, or I'm not getting into that argument, but the numbers are going to go up. States and leagues and companies are going to take preventative measures, whether you like it or not. And I'm very curious the reaction to it, but it's coming. And it's talked about it before the show that I very much am now 100% worried that we were all excited that this bowling league season was going to come and it was going to feel normal again. And now I am not sure at all that we're going to have a normal season, and it might be as early as week 1, where we have to be back in our masks again, or we have to be split up again, or it's just closed. All right, it's a month away, a month and a half away. Who knows at this point?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but there's not going to be a new normal. That's the problem. Ever there isn't going to be a new normal. So how do we just keep rolling with it and adjust, and we all live with it? So how do we go about? I mean, we have to I don't want to say it as take chances, but we do it for the right reason. We get vaccinated for the right reason. I did it because of my students I'm around at school. I do it because of my wife, my grandkids, my folks. I don't want to bring something to them, and that's okay. Nick Rolovich, if you decide you don't want to do it, that's your decision. That's your decision. But, when is it going to be a line drawn if your school is saying, hey, we want to be safe, think about everybody else. And then that's where my decision was, is it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me ever, but it just is sad to think about. But, to get to the main topic about that, but do you feel bad for like Bryson DeChambeau and Jon Rahm, who are two big names, easily top 6 in the world, missing out now on the Olympics? And we'll get into a little bit more of the golf side, because there was a lot of moving and shaking this weekend in the golf side. We'll talk about that in the bottom of the 7:30 hour, the 7 o'clock hour. But it feels hard to see some of these guys who have worked hard to get there, and now we're back out, and I mean, especially representing your country. That I think that's the toughest part, to see like Jon Rahm out and so on.
Yeah, obviously anybody that has to miss out on this because of getting COVID, you hope nothing goes crazy wrong and everything they stay healthy, which you expect with these athletes. And then as a fantasy player, you get really mad at Yelich, even though he's vaccinated. Like, come on, man, I needed you this week. No, it's just I'm not looking forward to any of this. It's so frustrating that we finally get the show, and that I think we've said COVID every single week for 43 weeks, and there is no end in sight. And it felt like there was an end in sight a couple months ago, and then somebody pulled the finish line away, or we turned around and started running the other direction. It's one of the two. I can't tell. Let's get into baseball. We already talked about the Trey Turner thing, so let's talk about something else controversial. We've already talked about COVID. Talked about the Cleveland Indians being no more after this season, which I don't mind. I've said this multiple times on this show. If a team wants to change their nickname every single year, I don't care. I'm waiting for the year where teams will have sponsorships as their nicknames, and we're just going to have to get used to it, whether it's an offensive thing or not. It's a name. It's a nickname. I do not care. I don't care the reasoning for changing the name. If the New York Jets next week wanted to change their name to the New York Buses, go for it. I'm now a bus fan, apparently. That's just how it works. But the Cleveland Indians will be the Cleveland Guardians, which does make me a little upset because there are way cooler names than Guardians that they could have picked. I wanted the Cleveland Rockers. I know Eric wanted the Cleveland Spiders really bad. I know a lot of people wanted the Cleveland Steamers. Guys, that's never going to happen, as inappropriate as we want to be. But Robert, what do you think of the name?
Here's the thing. I feel bad because it's gotten to the point where I don't want to come off saying this wrong. Quote me by saying this, but everybody's getting soft. Everybody's getting soft. Come on, tighten it up. Stuff happened today that got me on a rant listening to my training, and it was all about BLM and that. And I'm like, this is not what I want to talk about. And you go back. Do you know how the Cleveland Indians got their name?
I don't care.
They were named. They took the name after one of their players who was an Indian. His name was Sockalexis. They were known as the Cleveland Spiders pre-1915, and then they changed their name to the Indians because of this baseball player by the name of Sockalexis, and that's why the name came about. And now you're taking it away from the reason behind it.
They made that guy their mascot. I get it.
Well, technically, yeah, but I mean, you're naming your team after this guy that played for your team, and it was a huge thing, you know. But we're also talking. This all happened in the early 1900s, well before our time. But you know, the Spiders were their name prior to that. So, do you go back to that name? I mean, it's hard to say, but you know,
I think Spiders would have been cool. Honestly, again, I'm not offended by the name, but if people are, I totally get it. And people are not soft now. I mean, the Washington Bullets changed their name because people were offended by bullets. Mm-hmm. Because there was a shooting, or not a shooting in the NBA, but wasn't that right after the not Artest, Gilbert Arenas, I think, brought a gun or something into a locker room, and then they ended up changing bullets. We've had name changes so much. You go back and look, because I did this the other day because I get on these YouTube tangents all the time. Somebody had made a video of all of the NBA championship teams. A lot of the beginning NBA championship teams have changed their name. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I mean, but the Guardians.
Yeah, the Guardians is kind of boring.
Here's the thing.
Kind of boring. It's a little boring.
I think they in some article I read that there is a roller derby team out of Cleveland called the Guardians. Did they just copy their name and say, "Here you go"?
Just stole it.
And it. I don't know. I am
in a situation. I put the two in my head that they were the same.
Listen, it's the same as the Washington football team. You know, I want to say WTF instead of WFT, but I mean, come on, guys. You know, it's okay if you want to change it. But I'm like you. How much longer until we get? You know, we've already seen stadiums happen. You know, I mean, you look in Seattle, the Kingdom. No name there. They move over to Safeco Field. Now it's T-Mobile Park. It's just inevitable to the time. It's inevitable to the time. Yeah, it's inevitable to the point till somebody gets one of these teams are going to get a sponsor and say the Seattle Guardians sponsored by
or
Laser
the Seattle
right.
Amazon. I could see the Seattle Amazon being a thing for sure.
The Seattle Kraken sponsored by Amazon. You know, it's going to happen.
Absolutely. I get more offended, and more people should get more offended when teams change their first name, because that means a city just lost their team. I don't care if they change their second name.
Was that a stab at the Baltimore team?
Yeah. Are you a Cleveland Brown fan?
I was wondering if you were going to go that direction.
You got to go that direction. You got to have a little bit of fun with it, because it's not the funnest topic to have. I've already had not fun topics that started with this conversation. I don't need any more. But the only thing that I'm offended by with the Cleveland Indians changing their name is the Guardians is kind of boring. That's it. That's it. But I'll get used to it, and everyone will get used to it, and everyone next year, you know what? And maybe we'll have to do it on this show too. Everyone that is in sports media is probably going to start having a jar, just like they did when the Chargers moved from San Diego to LA, where if you say Indians, you got to put $1 in the jar, and then we'll send it off to charity or something. But that'll be next year, and we'll get into it.
Here,
Robert's already ready.
I got $1. I'm gonna put it in my. There you go. We got $1 started.
Yeah. It's a little early. They're still the Indians now, so we can still call them that.
Hey, I'm making up for the Washington football team because that's exactly what how many times I said the Redskins.
Right.
I
still will. It's been a year, and I guarantee you, I say Redskins at some point this year. It's just gonna happen.
It will.
Injury news, because we've talked COVID, we've talked controversial name changes, so why not talk injuries? So we hit the trifecta on our show. But Mookie Betts to the IL. He's had hip issues for a while, so he has not played since July 19th. We'll see how long it takes him to get back. Steven Strasburg will have season-ending surgery. He played like 3 innings all year and has been dealing with stuff. He is going to address the neurogenic thoracic outlet syndrome. If that's correct, that TOS is the better way to put it. But is Strasburg the most injury-ridden player you've ever seen in your life?
I was going to ask you the same thing. I mean, I think they tried to keep him where he was not getting hurt. They shut him down early in so many of his early years. When does he say enough's enough and let me just be a human being and move on? Whether it's being a pitching coach or going to
if he retires,
broadcasting,
he doesn't get that big juicy contract.
But how many more times you got to be back on the IL or finish the season?
You still get paid while you sit there and heal.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just to the point that how much more do teams have to fork into him? Into how many years has he seriously been active? I mean, he's now what I'm looking. He's been out since 2010. Played in 12 games in 10, 5 games in 11. And then he had a good run, a good stretch where he, between 28 and 22 games, 30 games. And then you get 2 games last year, 5 games this year. When's enough on his body? I mean, you're looking at 12 years.
You surprised me that he had 5 games this year. That's a lot to me.
Yeah, just looking for his right now, he's got 5 games started. He is 1-2 on the season with a 4.57 ERA. And in those 5 games, he's given up 16 hits, 4 of which are home runs, and walked 14, but struck out 21. But I mean, when's enough?
It's got to be soon. But again, he's getting paid, and none of that changes.
Yeah.
Trade deadline is just 4 days away. We're waiting for things to explode. One thing I forgot to put in the notes because it was last week, but Nelson Cruz got traded to the Tampa Bay Rays, who then traded Rich Hill to somewhere. I forget where Rich Hill went. New York? Did he go to New York, Eric? But Nelson Cruz has already paid dividends for Tampa Bay. He's hit a couple home runs for them. He's 0 for today, thankfully, but I shouldn't say that because he's still up. Actually, he just fouled one off of his foot. Hopefully, he's okay.
He did go to the Mets.
God, my brain still works some ways. Adam Frazier got traded to San Diego. Is there even a spot for him in San Diego? Because holy goodness, that roster is fantastic. Seattle wins 3 of 4 against Oakland, and then has a crazy comeback against Houston last night, which made one Seattle Mariner fan on Twitter believe that they're going to win the AL West now, even though they're still 7 games out and a negative run differential. You guys, calm down. But everyone, I mean, you did, Tim did.
It's only 6 games out.
6 games out. I don't care. it's still you are not that
One
special. This is not a
one
World Series team.
one game out of the AL wild card.
That's great.
So
You can still possibly make the playoffs, and I know for Seattle Mariners fans, that's a huge deal. I had this conversation with friend of the show, David Dufenberg, earlier today. The Yankees right now are what 2.5 games behind the Seattle Mariners, and you and I have two completely different outlooks on how this season is going. You are over the moon and excited and feel your team is full of magic and vigor.
listen,
And I want to burn the whole team down. Just fire everybody, sell them all. Aaron Boone needs to have been fired 8 months ago. And you're going, woo-hoo. And we're
Listen.
2.5 games difference.
yeah, but listen, here's the difference. Here, they've been playing with so much energy. It's been a totally
they're
over
fun.
since
very
the
fun.
All-Star break. They have looked totally different. You know, it's just been really good. Winning 7 of the last 3, like you said, taking 3 from Oakland, huge. Who Oakland's ahead of them only by 1 game now. So it was transcending up. It'll be interesting to see how the guys play today after the I hate to say the word stupid, but one of the silliest moves that Jerry Dipoto has made this year or even in the last couple of years by getting rid of one of your best, or if that, your best reliever.
Yeah, it was. I sent you a message today like, what is happening? So the Mariners traded right-handed pitchers. That was a weird noise you're making over there, Robert. Right-handed pitchers Kendall Graveman and Rafael Montero. They get infielder Abraham Toro and relief pitcher Joe Smith in return. And they trade him to Houston. The team that you're trying to catch, we're going to make a trade with. I don't understand it. I don't think Seattle understands how trade deadlines work when you're actually a contender. And they're just going into their normal pattern. But we will see.
Well, listen, they should be buyers, not sellers, and I don't see.
I'm still unsure if that's a buy or a sell. I mean, it's a slight sell because you get a prospect in Toro. It was Montero even that great? Graveman's been okay.
Montero's been struggling a little bit, but
so was that even a sell? Was that a hey? We're gonna Graveman and Montero. We're going to send you to Houston. Please implode for them, and we will pay you on the download. Do you think that's what that is? Is that a WWE sending Bret Hart to WCW to help tank that company kind of a deal?
I have no clue why they would even make that move that they did. You look at the numbers for some of these players and how they have played over just the last few weeks, and they've been extremely good. And then you get rid of your best reliever. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Montero was struggling a little bit. You know, he being out of the middle reliever, he had 43 innings pitched, but he is struggling, you know, with a 3.75 out of the pen. That's a little rough. But then you look at Graveman. Graveman was at a 0.82 ERA. He had given up a total of 15 hits in 33 innings of work. I mean, why are you getting rid of your best guy out of the bullpen? I mean, the other one, Paul Sewald, you know, has been doing great, but it was Sewald and Graveman. I don't understand why Dipoto was making such a move with a few days left. I'm kind of like Harold Reynolds. There's got to be a reason on the backside, whether it's like you were saying just a minute ago with Toro or with, you know, Joe Smith is a decent player right now. What does Dipoto see in Abraham Toro?
Right. And I don't see Toro playing for you guys at all this year. Just a depth thing. But
that could be.
I was still listening to you. I'm looking around for something to throw because of your stat that you're going to say in a minute. I can't find anything, but
which one's that?
You put a stat of the week on here just to troll me, and I've been waiting for you to bring it up all damn show, and it's almost coming up. Did you not even remember putting this on here?
I guess not. I don't remember.
Good. I'm not bringing it up.
Oh, come on. You take all the
New
fun
York
out
Yankees now lead the stupid majors with 3 losses after when leading by 4 runs in the 8th inning or later. I hate you. I hate the Yankees. I hate Aaron Boone. Aaron Boone.
You know, you and I talked about that at the driving range the other day. When is it they going to finally decide that enough's enough with Aaron Boone, with them pulling Herman after giving up just 1 hit after 7 innings there in the 8th inning? It made absolutely no sense. We sat there and listened and paid attention to it that 8th inning, and all of a sudden it was just like an implode. But wait,
listen. We only have 70 minutes left in the show. Let's move on. I can't do it. I've this weekend, the first game against Boston and the last game against Boston were the 2 most infuriating games I've ever watched. I shouldn't say ever. I'm sure there were worse, but there were 2 most infuriating games this season, and I can't.
How about one of the great comebacks last night? It was ugly.
Let's go on to player of the week. I'm taking an unknown in Dalton Varsho, a catcher/outfielder for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Let's give some Arizona Diamondback love on the show, because we never do, because they suck. 7 of 16, 3 home runs, 7 RBI for a no-name. Just absolutely fantastic. Had a home run in 3 straight games. So he is my player of the week. How about you, Robert?
Well, for me, I kind of had to go no-brainer this week. I took Chris Taylor from the Dodgers. Yeah, we've talked about Dodger players. We've talked about Padres. I still think that division is probably the best division, and it's going to come down to the end too. There is a very strong chance we take 3 teams out of that division going into 100%. The playoffs.
There, and I will take anybody. You give me the 3 teams in the NL West, or any of the 3 teams in the NL West to take the 2 wild card spots. I'll give you the rest of the National League. I guarantee you, NL West teams are both wild card spots. I could have said that cleaner, but you got me so worked up and angry.
Well, I agree, but
I can't English right now.
So we look at Chris Taylor's numbers last week: 5 home runs, 6 RBIs, 9 runs scored. That guy gets on base, but I think the biggest out of it.
I apologize. I will let you get to that in 1 second. We have breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Richie has informed me, and it is in fact true, that the Texas Rangers, who scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 4th inning, took their first lead in over 100 innings. So congratulations to the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers for both doing something good, even though the Arizona Diamondbacks are the team that's losing to the Texas Rangers right now.
Yeah, they were up 1-0 there. What I want to say in the second inning. Yeah,
2-0 now, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was crazy. But anyway, Chris Taylor, unbelievable. But I think the biggest one for me, 7 of his 12 hits were all for extra bases. So think crazy. About that. Half of your hits last week were for extra bases, and they were doubles or home runs. So 5 doubles out of that. And it's just nuts to think about. But unbelievable.
Breaking news. The Yankees just hit into another goddamn double play. I quit.
Well, in that case, how about last night's game with the Mariners? We'll talk a little bit.
Move on. Robert, give me your series of the week. I'm not letting you talk about this. We don't have time.
Series of the week for me, I have for the Monday through Wednesday games this series between Seattle and Houston. I mean, it's been
fair.
Been good.
I would call you a homer, but that's a big series.
But it's a huge series, especially if the Mariners can make another push and win again, which could easily happen. And I'm pulling for the Padres. They are getting ready to happen, that they can take care of business against the A's. So it'll be nice. My weekend series might shock you a little bit, and I'm going to take the Cincinnati Reds versus the New York Mets series. The Mets are still plugging along. They're at the top of the NL East, but Cincinnati's looked good. But don't sleep right now on the Kansas City Royals, who have been playing lights out, have won their last 6 games. Keep an eye on the Royals this week.
Yeah, I would give you a score update, but we are running out of time for our hour. We got to get into our football half hour here very shortly. My series to watch starting tonight. Dodgers and Giants go at it again. You got to bring it back up. It's back-to-back weeks, but who cares? And then Friday through Sunday, Boston and Tampa Bay. No, that was a no-brainer. Yes, Eric, we are still winning, and yes, Lamar just hit a home run, but it is now the 8th inning, and we just talked about what happens with the 8th inning and the New York Yankees. Our power rankings are up. The top 5 basically stayed about the same. A little bit of switching here and there as far as placement, but the top 5 basically stayed the same. Go check that out. But I want to get into Robert's Would You Rather. Robert, we got 5 minutes.
So here's the thing. I wanted to come up with an idea with everybody moving, trade light deadlines happening. I'm going to do a little Would You Rather, Randy, and build a team. I want you to think about building a major league team here.
Okay.
And we're going to go through the positions first, and then I'm going to ask you one question at the very beginning. So I'm going to first start, and a team's got to have a great manager. So I'm going to throw out some names. First of all, we're going to start with the managers. Who do you take? I'm going to give you 3 ALs and 3 NLs, but you've got Alex Cora of Boston, Tony La Russa of the White Sox, Dusty Baker, both of those guys, older guys. Do you take Luis Rojas for the Mets, who has 2 great seasons, Craig Counsell or Gabe Kapler, or do you take somebody else? Maybe you're Aaron Boone. No, I'm just kidding. But who would you take? And you don't even have to take any of those. If you want to take somebody else, take somebody else.
I would take Aaron Boone and place him right next to Adam Gase in the garbage pile. That's what I'm doing with Aaron Boone. Alex Cora. I hate to say it because he's the Boston manager, and I hate to say it because he was part of Trash Can Gate for Houston. But there is a reason that Boston is in first place right now, and they were trash last season when he was suspended for the year. He is so good, not only motivationally, watching this series this weekend and watching him up on the top step, teaching his young kids, his young batters, right before they go out there on the on-deck circle, still working with them while Aaron Boone just stands there. Mm-hmm. He manages the game really well. Obviously, he has the emotion to go along with it. He is there for his players. It's just, he, to me, is the best manager in the game overall. Like, just well-rounded everything. So that's who I want is Alex Cora.
All right, Alex Cora then. All right, so let's go to the pitchers. And I took 3 pitchers that are leading in different ways that I would think I would want to build my team around. First of all, Lance Lynn, who has looked unbelievable with Chicago, 9-3 on the season, 1.3 ERA. The other one for the Dodgers, Walker Buehler. I threw Walker in there. I know it's not a name that everybody knows, but Walker Buehler right now, 10-1.
I know Walker Buehler only because of fantasy baseball and our buddy Richie messaging me every 5 days saying Walker Buehler is so good because he has him on his fantasy team and he pitches great. And I get it every time he pitches.
And the other one would be Garrett Cole. And I took one of your Yankees. Garrett has been really good, 10-5 on the season, 2.7 ERA. Would you take one of those 3, or do you have somebody else that you would take as a pitcher?
I'm taking Walker Buehler. He's 27 years old. I'm building my rotation around him. Lance Lynn has been a great story, has been very great with Chicago, but he's getting up there in age, and I don't believe it's going to last very long. And Garrett Cole costs way too damn much money. If I'm starting a team and I already put over like $30 million on one player, I'm strapped for cash already. So give me Walker Buehler and a couple of years left on a cheaper-ish contract and let me build from there.
All right. So now we're going to come down to batter. And out of these 3, and I know you're going to take one of them, and the numbers are just monstrous. Fernando Tatis Jr., young, great player. We don't
need to go through the numbers. We got a minute. So
Vlad Guerrero Jr. or Shohei Ohtani, who do you take?
This one's really hard. I absolutely love Tatis and Guerrero, but give me Shohei Ohtani. Let him pitch for me as well. Let me get that foreign audience money, which would then help me pay for some of these other players when I then have to pay Walker Buehler when it's time for his contract to come up. Obviously all 3 of these players are very special, but Ohtani is just something completely different. And honestly, if I'm building a team, my first pick might be Shohei Ohtani.
And that was my question. Who would you take first? Would you take Shohei or would you take Walker Buehler then?
Yeah, I think it would be Ohtani. It's too difficult not to. But it is now time for that NFL half hour right now. And I don't know how we're going to fit this in a half hour. Once again, I set up a game for myself, and we're never going to get to it. I'll just keep leaving it there because Aaron Rodgers has decided enough's enough. Let's go. And this comes after the fact that Davante Adams is talking about he wants out now. I don't know if that was before last week's show or not. I forget if we even talked about it. But Davante Adams has talked about wanting out, and then they both Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams both posted a picture, the same picture of like Michael Jordan from the Last Dance documentary, which basically reads to me that they have both went, all right, we're going to play for Green Bay this year, and then that's it. And then they're going to go their separate ways, just like Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson had said when it was known that Phil Jackson was not going to be renewed after that year. I think this is it, Packer fans. Enjoy it. This will be the last year of Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams in Green Bay, which makes me even more mad that Aaron Jones decided to stay when he could have been a Jet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting over the next probably few days to finally hear what this contract is going to come down to. It's been watching the reports today, while trying to do my training. Yes, I was doing a training today. But watching the reports, it was a little interesting to see them talk about the idea. Yeah, they're moving on with this. How do they make the adjustment for next year? Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. If there's already a place in work that they are planning on moving him, if that's part of the deal. So the details will be quite interesting once we get to that point.
Where do you think he would go? If you have to make a prediction right now, I already have it in mind.
He'd want to go, I believe he'd want to go to a contender. I think he goes, I want to say he goes south somewhere. I could see him going to San Francisco. I could even see him going to the West Coast and going to Seattle. I mean, that's a possibility too. I'd hate to. I hate to say it. There's no reason
with Russell Wilson there.
Well, I don't know about that.
He's going to Denver. That was a big prospect team when the trade rumors first started, and they really didn't do much as far as fixing their quarterback situation. And I believe they're one quarterback away.
Do you think John Elway gives him enough money of what he wants? Because he's still got probably 4 more years. If that.
He doesn't have that. How old is Aaron Rodgers?
I say you get him for 4 more years. I think Aaron Rodgers got 4 more years.
37 years old. Not everyone is Tom Brady.
Hey, listen, I saw some stats this week that put those two comparisons, and you look at some of the stats that Aaron Rodgers has compared to Tom Brady. His numbers are good, with not even better than what
it doesn't
Tom
matter.
Brady's
it's whether he wants to play till he's 97 years old. I'm not saying who's better. I'm just saying not everyone's Tom Brady and they can play till they're 90.
Well, I think he'll figure a way.
I think Aaron Rodgers plays this year. He plays next year, and that might be it. He might play one more year after that, but it also kind of depends if he gets the Jeopardy job.
You saw the numbers. The worst numbers from the host they had the other day was the worst numbers of Jeopardy that they've had since People In and Out. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, who knows? Also, somebody who reported Deshaun Watson.
He doesn't hit the field tomorrow. I guarantee you he won't be on the practice field tomorrow.
The most surprising news. So this was my favorite thing. So in February, and I still believe that if the Deshaun Watson massage news does not break, that he's a New York Jet right now. But it's so funny to me that Deshaun Watson wants a trade. He's never playing for Houston again. And Houston goes, we are never trading them. Then this massage story hits. And now all of a sudden Deshaun Watson is showing up to training camp and Houston is now open to trade him. They have completely flip-flopped on which way they want to go. But from all reports, their asking price is still a combination of 5 starters and top picks, which you're definitely not going to get with the baggage that comes with Deshaun Watson now. The NFL has already said there will be no restrictions placed on him. So we will wait and see, or at least until more of this stuff starts coming out. So you believe he will not be on the field tomorrow? Do you think he ever steps on a Houston Texan field again or on an NFL field again?
It'll be interesting to see if he even steps on the field again, but I think he does. Where, I don't know, but it'll be an interesting season whether or not he makes it even. You look at that. There's 4 other quarterbacks on that roster right now. It'll be interesting. Where would they move him? Where would Deshaun Watson want to go play? Could he land in what you said, Denver? But then that would shake up
100%.
things. But then that would shake up things with Aaron Rodgers if that's where we think going. There's a lot of possibilities of what happens. I don't see him getting on a field for a little bit, but we've seen a lot different things happen.
Honestly, with the NFL coming out saying there's going to be no restrictions, he's going to play this year. And if he misses a game, it's not going to be due to these allegations. It'll be due to injury. I fully believe that now, which is crazy to me because I wasn't expecting this at all. I still think if he plays for Houston, they're not going to be that great of a team because the rest of the team around him is pretty brutal. But it's just that was the most shocking thing I've seen this week. Out of everything we've seen, it's like, oh, Deshaun Watson's back. Oh, Houston now wants to trade him. What wacky world did we go through? Haley and I have been rewatching the show Arrow, which has this multiverse deal with it, which drives me absolutely nuts at times. What multiverse did we go into this weekend?
It's just crazy to think about everything. I think the Earth tilted a little bit funny earlier in the week. It had to be something, but yeah, I
must have hit my 5-iron too good at the driving range and messed something up.
I think something's got to give. I think he plays, but
World 2. Thanks,
World
Haley.
2.
God,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about World 2. World 2 is so stupid. Stupid Nazi Tommy. If anybody got that reference on the chat, you're my new best friend. Zach Wilson is not signed with the Jets yet. Trey Lance is not signed with San Francisco yet. Training camps are opening. Obviously, I believe the Zach Wilson is a bigger deal because he would be the starter. Trey Lance probably wouldn't be day one. But the Jets did this with Sam Darnold too. When do you think Zach Wilson signs, and how long can the Jets wait before it actually becomes an issue?
I think they sign him within a couple weeks.
Weeks?
I think
we got preseason in less than a couple weeks.
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah, there you go. Lois says there's a full moon first of this week, so that everything.
Here comes all the astrology people and the signs. I'm not one of those people that think about my sign or anything. All I know is I'm a bull, and that's all that matters. But listen, I think they wanted to see him perform a little bit in the first week or so. I think they get the job done here probably within 2 weeks. Whether or not it's the lucrative offer that he wants for being a first, signing for 3 years
money.
or 4 years. No, it won't be money. So it'll be bonuses, or it will be something, the incentives for, helping get to the playoffs, or it'll be the incentive side is what I think is where it'll be. It won't be, they'll get their base money for him being a rookie, but why are you sorry, Lois? Nothing to be sorry about. Nothing at all.
I hate this feeling that I'm over here watching the Yankee game off to the right side, just waiting to yell. We're in the bottom of the 8th inning. The Yankees are up by 2. I'm just my body is in full ready to throw the microphone away, so I'm not screaming into it for you people, because I just feel like something bad is about to happen. And Mercury, what is that? I don't understand what Mercury is in Gemini, and let's move on. This is like having Robert talk about the Mariners comeback. I just don't want to deal with it. Let's talk about something that really did suck over the last week. Jets assistant Greg Knapp passed away. He was hit by a car last Saturday. He succumbed to his injuries this past Thursday. He was 58 years old. He was hit by a car riding his bicycle. Just crappy news. Obviously, I don't really know Greg Knapp at all. He just joined the Jets this season, but all of the pouring support and well wishes and good kind words that came out on Twitter this week showed that he just seemed like a fantastic dude. He played in the NFL from 86 to 94 and never played in the NFL. He was always a practice squad guy for the Chiefs, Raiders, and 49ers, and then coached for 7 different teams, whether it was the 49ers, Falcons, Raiders, Seahawks, Texans, Broncos, and then the Jets this year. So just really, really sad news. Wanted to bring that up here in this section. Any thoughts there, Robert?
Yeah, here's the thing, guys. Life is short. Make sure you tell those that mean a lot to you that you love them, and it makes you think. I was out riding on my bike the other day, and to think that somebody could have easily hit me or move on. I mean, it's very short, and do the things you love. I mean, do get out there, do things, don't take for granted. I mean, it's kind of like the last minute thing going to the game 2 weeks ago, with Spokane. I mean, I had no clue. All right, spur of the moment. Let's just go out of town and watch a game. I mean, you got to do those kind of things. So, my thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family and even the Jets. I mean, with looking at the Twitter responses from the Jets over the last few days has been crazy with the outpouring. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this will be an interesting one, and let's not spend a lot of time because we just did all the COVID talk, and we should have brought it up here, and I forgot. The NFL says that teams could forfeit games this season if outbreaks happen due to unvaccinated players, and if there is no rescheduled date that they can find, and they're not. It doesn't sound like they're going to go way over the top with it like they did last year, where like the Baltimore Ravens got moved around and had to play 3 games in like 10 days or whatever crazy number that was. Thoughts on this one?
It's going to happen. Somebody's going to get a forfeit. It'll be interesting to see who and when and which team is the first one. But
I'm going to make a prediction as to the Washington football team because Ron Rivera is so pissed off right now that their vaccination numbers are so low. I would think it's Washington. And Division 1 forfeit could be the season.
Oh, exactly. Even though they gain a game this year, I think you're 100% on with that ball club. One of the tightest divisions. Until they get some bigger names in that division, I think it could be anyway a flip of a coin, a 4-sided die. I mean, anything could happen there. So it will be interesting. That indeed.
We already talked about Rick Dennison. It sounds like he might get a different role with Minnesota, but co-offensive line coach for the Patriots, Cole Popovich, won't return due to not wanting the vaccine as well. Last story for me, as far as the NFL news desk goes, your Lamar Jackson, sir, says that he will go to the number 1 if the Ravens win the Super Bowl. Do you care?
What do you mean go to the number 1?
He will change his jersey number to number 1.
I don't know. I don't know if that's easy. I mean, the bigger talk I'm hearing this week out of the Baltimore camp was whether or not they get his contract extension figured out. Dude, he's still got 2 years on his original contract. I know he deserves the money, but he said it. It's not about the contract right now. He wants to get there, win the Super Bowl, and get into the playoffs again. Numbers for him is not what he's wanting to talk about right now. And so my hat's off to him trying to divert it and put things back to the team and winning a championship, going after the championship with John Harbaugh and, with his team and Hollywood, J.K. Dobbins and that whole crew. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets the namesakes from to get off his back about money. I mean,
Yeah.
you get the feeling with him, he's more about playing ball, having a good time, being out on the field.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get into our. You gonna say something?
Oh, I was going to ask you, what about all these guys that are asking to be moved around? We did have one just before. We got Howard that wants to be moved now from Miami because he says he's got all the money. We go back to the Deshaun Watson thing. He wants moved around. I mean, it's become a league now that these players, if they don't like something, if a coach said something wrong, then they want out. They don't want to try to work on things, and they don't want to be the long. They don't want to be. I want to be here, start my career here, finish here. No, it's all about the money.
Yeah, and honestly, with the NFL, I get it more than these other sports because they can get cut at any moment. Obviously, if you're a star, you don't feel like you're gonna get cut. But obviously, the NBA got away with a lot of things and created super teams, and I think NFL players are trying to do the same thing. It's like, listen, the NBA figured out that because we're making 50% of the money, we have a lot more power than we give ourselves credit for, and then we're going to push it around, and it's showing that they do have that power, and they're going to make it work, whether we find that as crybaby or not. It's just the way things go right now. It's the way of life. All right, let's get into our top 10 running backs as far as fantasy football goes if you're using PPR scoring. And do you want to go 1 to 10 or 10 to 1?
Let's go to 1 to 10. When I was typing this, I left it as what we did last time. But I want to go 1 to 10 because I think we're going to be a little bit more on the top side in agreement. And
for the most part.
For me, I think you and I, we have our number one guy, and it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Don't get excited. It's
opposite
just
of excited right now. It's happening.
So for me, number one, and I think number one for you, it's got to be Christian McCaffrey.
Which honestly, there's a lot of places I was looking at today that would disagree with us.
Mm-hmm.
But
do you think he is the number one player on the field in all of football?
I did forget about this. I saw a tweet today, and I want to get your opinion real quick. What would the world be like if normal jobs acted like sports? Where you could just get traded, where all of a sudden we get a news report that Robert Hagan has been traded to the Lewiston High School district for a math teacher, a fourth grade teacher, and a kindergarten teacher to be named later.
It might slowly become that. I mean, you never know. Change your job, move, here we go. And it kind of does, they do bounce around, What happens if you get changed and moved out in the big markets? You get moved from, you're leaving the New York office. Guess what? You're moving to Omaha, Nebraska to start an office there. I mean, it happens, but it's just crazy. Yeah, it's tough. Yes,
but yeah, back to Christian McCaffrey. I think he's going to be really good this season if he can stay healthy.
But is he the number one? Oh my Lord!
That was a highlight. I almost lost it. That was a highlight from a different game. I'm over here looking at my notes, and I see a ball leaving the state.
For those of you that don't know,
I'm so tense right now.
The Rays are trailing the Yankees 4-3 in the bottom of the 8th right now, so it is a close game.
With one out, guy at second. I can't breathe. Not right now. Anyway, Christian McCaffrey, what are we talking about? What day is it? I've said it multiple times. I love Sam Darnold going to Carolina. I think it's going to be a great fit for him, and especially in PPR formats. This works out perfectly for Christian McCaffrey because Sam Darnold's going to dump it down a lot. Christian McCaffrey, I think, is going to have over 100 catches on the year as a running back, plus be a good running back as well, score some touchdowns. And that is why I have him as my number one running back. And I know you do as well, but is it the same reason?
Listen, he was the best running back in 2019. Most yards from scrimmage. He just dominated the game. And you look at what he did do when he was catching the ball. He only played 2 games this last year because of injury, 225 yards, and 149 yards receiving. Can imagine if things would have happened if he would have stayed healthy. It's just he will be back to his normal being. I think he could easily be the number 1 or number 2 yard gain running back this year. Hey, I don't know why you're
right now.
Hey, listen, Houston just gave up, Alvarez just hit a home run for Houston. So the Mariners are down 3-0, but they were down 7-0 last night and came back and won 11-8. So
I'll talk about it. Why do you hate Dalvin Cook so much? You have him 4th.
No, it's not that I hate Dalvin Cook. Listen, I don't hate Dalvin Cook. His cast of characters, I think, really puts him in a bad predicament. I think he is the focus guy in Minnesota, and so that's why I dropped him down a little bit. Listen, he's not a bad running back. Over 1,500 yards last year, 16 touchdowns. I just think until they get him some help up there to coexist, I think he is. I think there's 2 other guys that are going to have bigger years this year.
It's possible. I again, as you said, it's another one. PPR changes the game a little bit for me. He had a fantastic season, a lot of touchdowns. He's not the biggest receiving running back out there, but he's definitely up there. And with Cousins, you have to expect he's going to get more. So he is my number 2. Who is your number 2?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the leading rusher from last year, Derrick Henry. I mean, Derrick has looked really great. He had over 2,000 yards rushing, 17 touchdowns. He is not the receiving running back. He is the ground and pound.
For me, in a non-PPR, I have these 2 switched.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I can see that. And I didn't think that way through with it being a PPR, touches, receptions, all that. That might give him a little bit more. And
thank God. A double play on the correct side. Let's go to the 9th inning, boys. I can't do this. We need to do the show at a different time when the Yankees aren't playing. I can't.
But listen, I think Derrick Henry is one of the toughest running backs, and he will stay the ground and pound. I know you're not huge on it, but I think with Julio being there, it might take a little pressure off of him. They've got great receivers there. Look for Tennessee, and we'll get to this in a couple of weeks. Look to Tennessee to be one of a breakout team that I don't think I want my Ravens playing very often.
Yeah, I mean, when healthy, Julio will definitely be a difference maker. I just don't think he will be that healthy. I have Derrick Henry 3rd, and I agree. If this was a non-PPR league, I have him 2nd and possibly 1st. He is just that good of a running back. But with Julio out there, they may try to pass it more as well. Time will tell. Who is your number 3?
My number 3 might shock you a little bit, but I'm going Alvin Kamara. Alvin is probably going to be the workhorse of this team, not knowing. I'm still not sold on what Sean Payton's going to do at his quarterback, whether or not he keeps Taysom Hill as that flex guy, whether or not Jameis Winston. I just don't know what he's planning on doing. So I think he's going to get a ton of workload. But, you look at Kamara, just short of 1,000 yards, but what he lacked in running, he made up catching the ball. He is a great hands receiver for New Orleans. Only lost the ball twice last year. And those are with 2 fumbles. I mean, those are good things for a running back that is probably one of the greatest ones to play in a New Orleans Saints uniform.
Yeah, another great receiving running back here with Alvin Kamara. I'm with you. It's all up to who's going to be their starting quarterback. If it's Taysom Hill, I'm not drafting Alvin Kamara on any league. I don't. It showed last year that he just becomes invisible in the passing game with Taysom Hill. But with Jameis Winston, it could be good for him. But I do have him 4th. You have Dalvin Cook 4th, as we talked about. We agree on number 5, and let's speed it up. We got 6 minutes left here. And I actually felt like I put him a little high because I am a big fan of his. We are best friends on Twitter. Aaron Jones, with the news that Aaron Rodgers is coming back to Green Bay, this is just good news for Aaron Jones to me.
Yeah, I think it's a huge compliment. It'll be interesting, like we talked earlier. What's this team going to look like with Aaron Rodgers back, Devontae Adams both wanting to move on? What does that say for Aaron Jones? I think he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder, and it's a win a championship, or I'm going to ask for a trade and move out of Green Bay. That's a strong possibility, and I think that might happen.
All right, give me your bottom five.
My bottom five, I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley at number 6. I know he only played 2 games, was hurt. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. My number 7, and it's just because it'll be his sophomore year, but give me Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's going to be great. Number 8, I'm going to go with Zeke. Zeke will get the touches again. It'll be nice to have Dak back there. I think that'll help out his game. Number 9, go back to the AFC North. Sorry, dude. I'm going Nick Chubb. I know.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry for him. Be sorry for the next one. Be very sorry for the next one.
I think Nick Chubb is a great runner. He has got a lot to prove in Cleveland, and I'm excited to see what he does. But that just means our division is really tough. Mm-hmm. But go ahead and say it. I did it last week with the receivers. I'm doing it again. Give me J.K. Dobbins in the number 10 spot. Yes, he only had 805 yards rushing, but most of those came in the second half of the season. 9 touchdowns, 120 yards rushing. I think the chemistry between Lamar and him will be a lot greater. So now that they've played one full season, add in Marquise there, it's going to be a great season for the Ravens. I like the idea there.
My 6 through 10 spots, a name that you did not mention in your top 10 is my number 6, Jonathan Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts. I know you believe very much in the Tennessee Titans. I believe very much in the Indianapolis Colts. Taylor had a fantastic rookie season, over 1,100 rushing yards, almost 300 receiving yards, only had 12 touchdowns. I do believe the touchdown number goes up, and the yards number might go up as well as he gets used a bit more in the offense. Another one that would be much farther down if this was not PPR, but you got to give love to Austin Eckler if he can stay healthy. We only played 10 games last year. He only played 10 games last year and had 54 receptions. Mm-hmm. The dude is a catching machine. Not a lot of touchdowns, but get him more work with Herbert, and you got to love that with the Chargers. I have Chubb 8, Saquon Barkley 9, and Ezekiel Elliott number 10. So we for the most part, we had the same. I think we had 8 of the 10 names the same, and it's just which order you feel comfortable taking.
And listen, I have Taylor at number 11, so I mean he's right there. I like what that division is doing, and AFC is getting to be that strong conference. So
yep. All right, real quick.
Okay.
Just very quick, yes or no answers because we have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Randy's Believe It or Not, Players in New Locations edition. I have to have subtitles because I'm a nerd. Sam Darnold will have a career year with the Panthers.
No.
It's not even that hard for him to have a career year, and you're going to say no? Okay.
No.
Ryan Fitzpatrick will not start more than 6 games for Washington.
He has been getting a lot of praise this week of Washington being one of the best teams that he has played on. I'm going to say he gets more than 6 starts.
It's tempting. I might agree with you. Julio Jones will have under 70 receptions for Tennessee.
I hate to say it. I think he is going to find a new spot there. He's going to be just under. I think he's going to be 58 to 65, somewhere in there.
I think even if he played a full season, he's under 70 because that ball goes all over the place. A little homerism for you, sir. Sammy Watkins will make less than 10 starts for Baltimore.
I think he'll, depending starts. Are you saying starts or is going to play each game? That's my question to you. Is there a
He will
difference?
play in less than 10 games
I think he's gonna.
because of his injury issues.
I think he gets things figured out.
You
Haven't
can't
seen.
figure out injuries, man.
I think. Well, you can. I mean, I think he figures a way to play through it. I think he's going to get more starts than you think. I think with the 17 games, I think he gets more than 10
And
games.
finally, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith will combine for more than 150 receptions for New England.
Depends on how much.
That's a huge number, but
That's a huge number. I think no. I think it's going to be just under, but it depends on what Mac Jones does or Cam Newton, who's going to throw the ball. I think that has a lot to deal and to see who's going to.
It's a very big number that I put, and I will say under, but it would not surprise me if they went over on there. So there is Randy's Believe It or Not, and there is our NFL half hour. Next week we will do the top 10 quarterbacks as far as fantasy goes, as well as news, and another Randy's Believe It or Not that I will come up with, and we won't have time for. It's just how it goes. We're going to combine the NBA and NHL sections this week, as both seasons are now done.
You mean they finished? You mean they finally finished?
The NBA finally done. Let's do the NHL real quick because it's not much. Alex Ovechkin signs a 5-year, $47.5 million contract. And I just put on here the Kraken have players. You can go see the list of the players on the R&R Sports Report Facebook page. Robert posted a picture on there. They've already made a trade and messed up your sheet. Sorry, Robert. The draft also happened with the NHL. I can't tell you a single player that was on there, so we will not waste your time pretending that we know anything. We already spent 2 hours pretending we know other sports that we actually watch a lot of. On the NBA side, as we said earlier, the Milwaukee Bucks did win the championship just after our show got off the air. I just wanted to bring this up. I mean, it's a week behind, so we just wanted to bring it up and say that Giannis is underrated and just a complete freak of nature. NBA Finals averages this year, he averages just under 40 minutes a game, which is insane for a big man. 35.2 points per game, 13.2 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. Sir, if this was like a Kevin Durant or a Steph Curry or a LeBron James that put up these numbers, are people talking about all-time great finals appearances?
Yeah, I think so. It's all about the market, like we talked about earlier. Milwaukee is not one of the bigger markets, and so until everybody gets off the idea of being in the big cities and stuff, I think that's what it is. I had how many games did he have over 50 points this year? That's one thing that I just blown away with what he can do. And being an inside presence, he is a great athlete. I like what he has done, and for him to stay in Milwaukee to say I'm going to do it the right way, that's the biggest thing. He came out earlier this week, or if not this weekend, he said he stayed there to win a championship and do it the right way with hard work, and for that he's got to be moved up my list way up as one of my favorite players to play the game.
One of the best big men in the game, just character-wise, player-wise, and the way he reacted after winning the championship and the emotions he showed, just a cool moment, and I absolutely love it. And Eric, I almost put the Blackhawks and the Fleury trade, and then it's looking like Fleury might not even play for them. He might just retire. So we'll see. That's just what I've seen. I could be completely wrong, but that's why I did not add it to my notes. The play-in tournament that the NBA did last season with the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th seeds is going to return next season, fan or not?
I said no, but I think it'll take a couple years for it to rub off a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but it could bring a lot of drama to a team that has got to lay it all on the line to make it into the playoffs. So
I would rather see something like this than expanding the playoffs fully. That's why I like the MLB playoffs where 2 wild cards get 1 game. So they expanded it, but you only get 1 chance to do it. Same thing here. They expanded it a little bit, but you don't even want to be You have to be in the top 6 to feel comfortable because you don't want to be a part of that. And I kind of like the stepladder kind of approach, the kind of the AFL approach as far as the playoffs go, where the 7th and 8th teams will play each other. The winner's the 7th seed, and the loser still has a chance to make the playoffs, while the 7th and 9th seeds have to play each other, and the winner gets the chance then to make the playoffs. So I like the format of it, honestly. Even though I'm not the biggest basketball fan, I'm cool with this. NBA draft is this Thursday at 5 p.m. I might check it out just to see where a couple Gonzaga players go.
The only thing I've seen was Jalen Suggs. He made a comment there today, I believe, and I think it made it on his Twitter page that he was excited and he couldn't wait to play wherever he got drafted. He wants the opportunity. You know, as much as I would love for him to stay in Gonzaga one more year, but you know, that won't happen.
Left the station.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's get into a new game because I like games. Let's get into the numbers game. I'm going to ask Robert a couple questions based on some numbers that are around the NBA draft. Ooh. And I want to see if Robert can figure this out. Okay. How many consecutive seasons has a college freshman been selected number 1 overall in the NBA draft? How many straight seasons has the number 1 pick been a freshman in college?
I have no clue. I'm going to put 2. I'm going to say 2.
11. The one and done rule has really changed a lot of things.
Kyle Seager just hits a 2-run home runs off McCullers, so it's now 3-2.
I congratulate you. Chapman is in the game with a 1-run lead, and my blood pressure is ridiculous right now. I'm trying to not look over there. Where was the other one I wanted? How many times has the Barclays Center hosted the NBA draft?
Ooh. I'm going to say 6.
You are close. It is 8. 8 times the Barclays Center has hosted the NBA draft. Kentucky holds the record for the university with the most picks in a single NBA draft.
Yes.
Yes. How many of their players were drafted in a single draft, which holds the record?
I want to say it's 5 because all of their starters went 2 years ago, right?
I would believe that would probably be right, but the record is actually 6 in 2012 and 2015 that they did that. And the last one, I'm going to give you the number and the situation. You got to name me the players.
Oh, God.
There have been 4 times since the NBA draft lottery began in 1985 that the 4 first overall picks that won an NBA championship with the team that drafted them. So there were 4 players that were drafted first overall that won a championship with that team. Can you name those 4 players?
Was Kobe one?
Kobe was not a number 1 pick.
I don't remember number 1 picks.
I will give you a hint. LeBron then came back and won it with Cleveland. And I will give you a big hint now that you know one of them. 2 teams hold these 4 players.
Oh, geez.
2 happened for Cleveland. 2 happened for another team.
Yeah. Was Harden wasn't one. Harden wasn't.
Harden's never even won one.
I would say he hasn't been there. Boy, I trying to think of all the championships over the last little bit. You've got Miami.
And Eric, I'm waiting for you to answer this question too.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Kyrie Irving, that makes a good.
Kyrie Irving is the other Cleveland Cavalier.
Yeah,
the other 2 are in the Western Conference.
Steph
and are
Curry.
A bit older. Neither of them are in the league anymore.
Yeah,
they're very famous. They're both Hall of Famers. One was a Dream Team member.
Why I have Carl Malone stuck in my head?
It is not Karl Malone.
Yeah,
He never won a championship either.
yeah. I couldn't tell you. Sorry.
How about David Robinson and Tim Duncan of
The
the San
ad,
Antonio
the,
Spurs?
the Admiral, and yeah.
That was a very interesting stat that I saw, that only 4 times the number 1 pick has won a championship for the team that drafted them number 1.
Hey,
Overall.
listen, those two guys, they were some of the best to ever play their position, let alone play in San Antonio together.
Yes.
Tim
absolutely.
Duncan. So,
all right, you got 2 minutes to tell me about Spokane Shocks.
hey, Spokane comes away with a loss here this last weekend in a close game, losing to the Duke City Gladiators 68-61. They do drop down to 4th place in the standings in the IFL. The Shock did give up 28 points in the second quarter and just could not get back. But the biggest thing for me there, Randy, and you and I went to a game a few years ago, but in the last 4 minutes, 29 points was scored in that ball game. In the last 4 minutes, 29 points. Shock had only 109 yards passing and 135 yards rushing. The Gladiators were able to just handle business. Ball State's Nate Davis is their rusher for the Gladiators. He had 288 yards, and he also threw the ball. And so he did really good. The Shock are at home on Saturday. They host in the Massachusetts Pirates, 7:05. It'll be an interesting game, as that will be their last home game for a couple weeks, and then we get into the playoffs here shortly.
All right, let's get into, well, again, I always say that the sports that don't get enough airtime, but we talk Spokane Shock right before we get into the segment. I need to fix that. Aussie rules football. Oh, man. How about, let's talk about Eric's teams first, because that was the big game, 1 versus 2. As the Western Bulldogs do take down Melbourne 85-65. Geelong completely crushed Richmond 95-57. Robert, your thoughts on your team?
It was really an ugly first quarter. It was 18-10 after the first quarter, 18-10 after the first quarter. But then in the second half, it was 51-10. It was an interesting game. It was just they just was able to run away with it. And your favorite player. Your favorite player, I know you're not a Hawkins fan, but
Tommy.
He had 4 goals, there in the first half. He just looked really good. So
he's very, very good.
I can't wait. I'm hoping that I jumped on a team that is going to be a huge contender and make it to win the championship and hopefully not face Western.
Realized that I have been so stressed and it's so hot in here that my hair poof has completely just died. This is where this is going tonight. I've lost my mind. Yeah, you're rooting for a great team. Meanwhile, mine is now tied for the Wooden Spoon as far as record goes, as they lose to Adelaide 102-83. They got crushed in the first quarter, came all the way back, took the lead, and then just couldn't stick with them. I like the effort. They're just not very good talented-wise. And then, of course, North Melbourne has to beat Carlton 116-77. So we have 4 weeks to go. Again, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, record-wise, are tied for that bottom spot for the Wooden Spoon. Record-wise, Western and Geelong, Eric's team versus Robert's team, tied up there for that top spot. Just the point differential percentage deal goes to the side of Western. Your important games this week, you get North Melbourne versus Geelong. So please, sir, I'm rooting for your team.
Hawthorn, hey, listen, go ahead.
I was going to say Hawthorn takes on Brisbane, and then your 2 big playoff deals, the 9th-ranked Essendon will take on the 6th-ranked Sydney, and then the 8th-ranked GWS will take on the 4th-ranked Port Adelaide this week.
Listen, I'm pulling for Adelaide this week. No offense, Eric, but Adelaide's got to pull up a big upset against your Western Dogs. So it'll be interesting. Unfortunately, Dish Network is not telling us what games are coming on. Fox is not telling us who's coming on this week. So it'll be interesting. And it looks like Randy.
It's just a 2-out walk,
okay.
But I just can't handle it right now. because now one bad pitch ends this game, and Nelson Cruz is walking up to the plate. It's
Yeah.
it is it's like when Jose Altuve walked up to the plate, went down by 2 with 2 men on. You just knew he was going to hit a home run. I have that feeling right now. I don't like that feeling. Yes, as Richie just says to me, let's walk Franco to get the Cruz. That's great.
Yeah, listen, Eric, I see Eric's thing go to the AF. So what? They have not been the games all the time. I don't know why. And Fox,
the site that I was using was really good early on, and then because of all the COVID shifting, they just don't update it. I guess
that's the problem right now with COVID stuff and that. So,
but yeah, definitely check it out. Robert, you have 9 pages of PGA stuff. I need you to shorten it down. I want to talk. I want to talk Olympics.
I'm going to crunch it down as much as I can. PGA, the big news was DeChambeau and Rahm out. Patrick Reed is going to take the USA's spot with Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, and Xander Schauffele. So that is going to be interesting as they get ready to play. I believe Thursday that'll start things up. The tournament this last weekend, Cameron Champ wins his 3rd title, but he's just played so crazy over the last 7 weeks. He's missed 4 cuts. He had to withdraw, and he's had 1 win over the last 7 weeks. But he does move up 95 spots in the FedEx points. We're down to 3 tournaments left before the playoffs start, so it'll be interesting. I feel bad for Louis Oosthuizen. Another 2nd place for this man. He just cannot seem to get a win. Joel Dahmen, we follow Joel a lot, and we follow him on Twitter. We follow Gino on Twitter. Had a little bit of a rough Saturday. He does make the cut, but on Saturday he ends up shooting 5 over. But then on Sunday he comes back, shoots 3 under, ties for even par for the tournament. So currently Joel is sitting 78th place in the FedEx. He does look to make at least the first tournament of the FedEx Championship. So that'll be interesting. Next tournament they're off this week for the Olympics, but the next tournament will be the Barracuda Championship in Tahoe at Truckee, California. So big one for me, and we haven't said much about the LPGA, but huge things happen. Jeong Lee 6 from South Korea shoots the ties the lowest round in a major, shooting 71 on Friday. She is also sets the lowest 36-hole record with the strokes of 127. That's first all time. Second, Brooks Koepka, and just crazy to think that this young lady has done it. She does go into the tournament leading into the final round, but shoots only par. And Australian's Minjee Lee comes back, and she sets a record by being 7 strokes down to come back to tie it. They go into a sudden death, and Lee 6 hits her 2nd shot into the water. So it is crazy as Minjee Lee wins her first tournament. So hats off to her.
Quick PBA news. It is back. Sean Maldonado won the PBA Lubbock Sports Open. He defeated Jake Peters in the title match, 222 to 199. The only coverage I watched of this was Brad Miller's YouTube channel. NASCAR took the week off. We talked about that last week. They will be at Watkins Glen on Sunday. But let's get into the Olympics for a few minutes. How much have you been watching?
It's been a little issue. I actually had Alila here the other day. We watched a little. They don't call it fencing anymore. What do they call it? They call it it's not fencing. Anyway, we watched
foil.
Foil. Right? They call it foil now. We sat and watched it. I did watch the mixed. Here you go. I watched the mixed doubles table tennis match, and Japan comes back and upsets the number 1 team in China and wins the gold there. So
I watched the highlights of that.
That was an unbelievable match. So, and they were down 2 sets and come back and win it. So
the Yankees win. Okay. Nobody else cares. And
Nobody cares.
Actually, I think we had 7 people watching, and I'm sure all of them are watching just to see if my face would turn red. I think that's the only reason they were here. I apologize. Come back next week to see how that goes. Honestly, for me, as far as the Olympics go, it's just been that. It's been highlights. I've been watching a lot of stuff on YouTube off the NBC Olympic channel and just kind of catching things here and there. I don't think I've watched a single event live yet.
We did watch water polo the other night too. Alila and I sat and watched water polo.
I watched the first USA polo match. I've watched some Taekwondo stuff, which is a weird sport where they just turn sideways and just fight with their legs. It's like obviously they're supposed to try to kick or punch each other in the chest or the head, but they just sit there in the same spot and like do this weird leg wrestle thing, and then sometimes they get points. I felt completely clueless watching that sport, but it was really cool to watch. Some notes that I put on here. There was a 12-year-old in the Olympics this year. 12? What were you doing at 12?
What was I doing at 12? I was getting ready to start Babe Ruth. That was about the time Babe Ruth was coming out. So
my son was playing
I was
Five
in
Nights at
4-H.
Freddy's and Fortnite. I was playing a lot of baseball and a lot of video games. And this Hind Zaza of Syria was competing in the Olympics at 12 years old. She did not win. She competed in table tennis, but still just very, very cool for a 12-year-old to make the Olympic Games. Speaking of a young lady doing great things, 17-year-old Lydia Jacoby out of Alaska won the 100-meter women's breaststroke, came from behind to win it. The commentators didn't even bring up her name until like the last 10 meters. She kind of came back from like fourth or fifth. One stat that they brought up on the highlights that I watched, Alaska as a state has one 50-meter pool in the entire state. And here she is winning Olympic gold. I think that's very, very cool. Hidillian Diaz, I apologize if I said that name wrong. She wins gold in the women's 55 kg weightlifting event. I'm sure there was an extra thing in there. But that was the first gold ever for the Philippines. And they have been competing in the Olympics for over 90 years and have never won gold until that event. If you want a very cool moment, go watch that moment. I know everyone watches the Olympics to root for the USA, but just the emotions on her face when she realized she got the jerk up correctly and got the 3 points or however the hell that works. Just very, very, very cool moment that I like to see. USA softball team ends up losing to Japan, so they take the silver. And USA men's basketball said, "Hold my beer, let's lose our opener." So they play tonight. It says about 9:40 Pacific time against Iran. They should win, but
they should. They've got to. If they don't win, look for this. Might put them out. You know, they're going to play for almost 2 weeks solid, but they've got to make a statement, and they've got to blow out Iran if they want to get a little bit better in that pool.
And obviously the women's soccer team also lost their opener and were able to come back and win their next game. And then what did they do? They tied, right? Their last game. They ended up making the tournament round, but I think they got a tie the last time. I was just trying to make sure I got the date right. Don't forget Sam Atkin, LCSC runner, will be competing in the 10,000 meter final on July 30th. I don't know the exact time that will go. I don't know why my game keeps go away. Jesus Christ. Things auto playing audio even though I have it on mute. I don't understand how computers work. But yeah, definitely check out Sam Atkin. I will figure out a way to figure out what time that is, have Robert post it. But right now, as far as when I did my notes, USA currently with 9 gold medals and 25 total medals. And also, Robert, I had you post a story on our page last night as we got a recap of how a young wrestler did. Do you remember exactly the details? I'm trying to look it up real quick.
Yeah, so we've got some local wrestlers that have been doing extremely well that just got done here over the last week or so. And competing in the Marine Nationals, they're doing freestyle and Greco-Roman. Tristan Bremer placed 7th in the Junior Nationals in Greco-Roman at the 126-pound weight class. He went 8-2 over the weekend. He is one of 7 to place All-American in the junior division in the state of Idaho, helping Idaho place 6th as a team. So hats off to Tristan. He is a 3-time state placer, so he is a great wrestler. A couple other wrestlers, they are coached by Mr. Bob Maurer. That is Jolie Slider. She achieved the 2021 All-American and took 8th in the Fargo Cadet freestyle at the 94-pound weight class. And she is 23rd All-American in Idaho history, so hats off to her. And then one of my past students, Hoyt Voss of Clarkson, he did participate in the freestyle and didn't have that good of a freestyle, but he did compete in the Greco, went 2-2 at the 113-pound weight class. So hats off to those folks. Again, Hoyt Voss, Jolie Slater, and Tristan Bremer.
Yeah, absolutely, very cool. And I was happy to get word back on how everything went down there. And again, if you want us to talk about anything local that we don't catch, definitely message us on the R&R Sports Report page. That's how we got news of this, and we have no problem reporting on it and putting it on our Facebook page and then talking about it on the show as well. It's just really cool to me. But one last thing that I had skipped over for a second, and let's not do this week in sports history because we just don't have time. I know you have a shout out you want to get to. But Simone Biles pulling out of the team event and everyone bashing her for it can go screw off, in my opinion. It is, yes, is she injured? Not technically. Was she having mental stuff going on? Yes, she's come out and admitted it. And everyone going, you got to be tough. You got to suck it up. Sometimes people just don't have it. If you watched any of her qualifying, everyone just thinks she just did the one jump and quit. Go watch any of her qualifying events. She just seemed off the whole time. I don't know if it's just something's going on in her personal life. I don't know if it was just the weird feeling of the empty stadium was getting to her and she just couldn't get herself in that right mindset. I don't know what it is, but she recognized that her mind was not in the right place and did not want to hurt her team and did not want to hurt herself. Because the way that she jumps and flips is dangerous as it is. And if your mind's not fully focused on that, you can hurt yourself. So I don't blame her for pulling out. Yes, it sucks because we all wanted to see her and we'll see if she still does the individuals. But for the people that are completely bashing her and saying she's weak, or the person that was on Doug Gottlieb CBS show today, or is he CBS or Fox or wherever he's at, but the Doug Gottlieb show, somebody called in and said, well, the people that stormed Normandy had to deal with it. It's like, the Olympics is not war, people. It's 2 completely different things. This is still a very young lady who has been put into a completely stressful situation. And whether she couldn't handle that moment, which I don't think it was just that moment that got to her, or if there's other things going in her life, congrats to her for being big enough to recognize it and not just trying to push through and hurting herself.
Listen, she's 24 years old and having her name thrown out as probably one of the best, or not the best, gymnasts in USA history or even world history at the age of 24, we're all going to have our bad days, and she could tell something was wrong. Hats off to her for making the team, and in telling her team that I believe in you guys, and being there as a cheerleader. You could see the different mindset, and some of the videos I've seen over the last day. And it is one of the number one trendy stories going on right now in the world on Twitter. Also, Facebook, it's like blowing up. I think, there's time that pressure will get to us. It always will be. And hats off to her for not wanting to jeopardize her team. It will be interesting to see if she does compete in the individual stuff. But I think that's a few days out.
I would honestly doubt it. But again, maybe something will click better for her. And you said something that yes, I want to nail home to as well. Again, for those that say that she quit on her team, the moment she finished her jump and knew that just it wasn't there, and her mind wasn't there. The first thing she did was tell her coach she can't do it. The second thing she did was went right up to that team and was there for their team, as you said, full on support. She didn't quit on them. She just knew she didn't have it. I would love it if my starting pitcher just told the coach, I don't have it right now, instead of going out there and giving up 8 runs. You're not quitting on the team. You're saving the team. So good job on her. And anyone bashing a 24-year-old woman, just get a life.
Yep.
Just stop it. But I know we're over time right now, but give me the trivia question.
The trivia question has to go to, well, there was 2, but I'm going to go back one. I'm going to say both of them. 1997, Greg Maddux throws a complete game of 76 pitches.
I see that on Facebook every year, and it drives me. It just
I know.
insane.
But, I like Greg Maddux.
It's so good. It's such a cool stat.
Yeah. But the one where I got the stat from this week is going to be 1968. Hoyt Wilhelm pitches a record 907 major league game, breaking Cy Young's record for pitching appearances. But he ends his career with 1,070 appearances, which is 6th all time. Who holds the record for the most appearances?
It's got to be somebody like the 1940s. No?
1980s.
Eckersley.
Roughly.
I don't know.
Eckersley is 5th, only one game game ahead of Hoyt Wilhelm. And you won't say it. Nope, not Kent. It is actually Jesse Orosco. He has made 1,252 appearances.
Most batters don't make it that far.
Yep.
All right, give me your shout out and let's end the show on a good note, because I've been grumpy on this whole show.
Oh, I know. You've been watching your Yankees play. Yeah, last shout out. It's been a busy week. You and I have had lots going on. So, but big shout out today. Happy birthday to my mom, Carol. They do watch the show quite frequently and listen. More listening when we're at the station, which we'll be back at the station hopefully within a month. Go figure. Within a month, we'll be back at the station. But they are streaming at home, so happy birthday, Mom. Love you.
Happy birthday. Thanks for putting up with me every week.
I mean, somebody's got to do it. Haley will just put you in place.
Absolutely, 100%. All right, the moment I walk out this door, she's going to put me to work.
Exactly.
For sure. But thank you guys for hanging out. We went a little long. That's the great thing about doing it from home. We can do that, but I try to keep us on the schedule. But I told you at the beginning of the show that there was too much to talk about, and there was lots of stuff we didn't even talk about at all, and maybe we'll talk about it next week. Who knows? We will see where that is. It's going to be August next month.
It's crazy.
Which means we are like a month away from regular season football. I think it's 6 weeks now until regular season football starts. 6 or 7 weeks. It's just crazy to me. I got to start thinking of fantasy football drafts, and I'm not ready for it. I'm already stressing over baseball. I can't do football.
I got asked a few minutes ago, earlier today. I said, "Are you starting up your fantasy football league that we did last year with some staff members and stuff?" And it's like, yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting. There you go.
She already put me in my place. I'm not even done with the show. Good grief. Anyways, that was a fun show. I had a good time. Robert, thank you so much. We will see you next week. Oh, wait. Actually, I forgot. The biggest news. Robert, you changed your Twitter handle.
I did change my Twitter handle. It took me a while to finally do it, but I finally did it. Bowling teacher just was, I don't do that much anymore. But if you would like to follow me on Twitter, and I do reshare and change tweets and all that, but you can follow me at RH Bantam's Voice.
There you go. RH Bantam's Voice for Robert. I'm at Randy Isbell. Now, that's Robert. I'm Randy, and we are out.